If you've ever had someone who's supposed to love you decide, out of nowhere, that your pain is a performance, stay with me for this one. Because what happened at my aunt's backyard reunion is the kind of thing you don't forget, no matter how many years go by. My own brother put his hands on me in front of 50 people, and he had no idea that the one witness standing quietly behind the crowd was about to unravel his entire argument in under 2 minutes. Let's get into it. My palms hit the pavement first, then my shoulder. Then the side of my skull cracked against the concrete hard enough that the whole yard seemed to tip over and refuse to right itself again. Everything swam, not blackout bad, but bad enough that for a few seconds I genuinely couldn't tell which way was up. The heat didn't help. It was the middle of July, the kind of heat that makes the air shimmer over asphalt, and I was flat on my aunt's patio with my wheelchair on its side beside me. One was still lazily turning in the sun. 50-some relatives stood around in a loose circle. A few were laughing. Several had their phones out, filming. My brother Tyler was standing over me, breathing hard, cheeks blotchy red, 3 beers deep, and clearly proud of himself. Enough with the act, Marcus, he announced, loud, performative, aimed at the whole yard rather than at me. Loud enough that the neighbors 2 doors down probably heard it too. I lay there on the baking concrete. My chair tipped a few feet away, my right leg twisted in a way that sent a jolt straight up my spine. The specific, familiar agony I'd spent the last 26 months learning to breathe through. The kind that whites out the edges of your vision if you let it. Meanwhile, life at the reunion just continued. Somebody cranked the country playlist. A kid sprinted by chasing a wiffle ball. The smell of grilling burgers drifted over, mixing with fresh-cut grass and the metallic taste of blood where I'd bitten my tongue on the way down. "Get up," Tyler said again, and I could hear it in his voice, that ugly little thrill of being right, of finally getting to say the thing out loud in front of everyone. Showtime's over, apparently. I tried pushing myself upright. My arms shook. The concrete had torn up my palms. I could see little flecks of gravel buried in the skin, blood beating up around each one like tiny red stones. "Look at him." Tyler turned to the crowd like he was summing up a case to a jury. 2 years he's been running this wheelchair routine. Ever since some accident nobody actually saw happen. "I was there," my mom said, from somewhere behind the wall of onlookers. Her voice barely carried. It was the voice of somebody who'd survived a dozen versions of this exact scene already. "You found him at the bottom of the stairs," Tyler shot back. "That's not the same as seeing it happen. For all we know, he threw himself down there on purpose." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Nods. Agreement, apparently, was cheap that afternoon. My cousin Jake, 23, worked retail, still lived at home, stepped forward like he'd been saving this for weeks. "Bro, I literally saw him walking around the grocery store last month. Cereal aisle. Standing there like nothing was wrong." The murmuring got louder. Heads bobbed. Knew it. Always figured that was physical therapy. I told everyone about the outpatient program. I said from the ground, my voice thinner than I wanted it to be. "At the hospital. That's..." "Sure it was." Tyler cut me off and kicked my overturned chair. The aluminum frame rang out like a struck bell. "Meanwhile, you've been cashing disability checks in Mom's basement for 2 years. Games. DoorDash on her card. Living your best life while the rest of us actually work." "I can't work." "You won't work." His face was close enough now that I caught the beer and barbecue sauce on his breath. "There's a difference, little brother." My Uncle Richard, the insurance guy, the one who never missed a chance to lecture people on personal responsibility, pulled out his phone and held it up like he was collecting evidence at a crime scene. "I'm recording this," he said grandly. "For the record, we've all enabled this long enough. Somebody needs to finally tell the truth." I looked around, hunting for anyone who might step in. My mom stood frozen near the picnic table, wringing her hands. My Aunt Linda, who'd organized the whole reunion, who'd talked me into coming after I'd tried to cancel 3 separate times, stood with her arms crossed and her mouth set in a hard line of judgment. My grandmother sat under the oak tree fanning herself with a paper plate, watching the whole thing like it was mildly disappointing television. Nobody moved. "The doctors said," I started. "The doctors said," Tyler mimicked, gaining momentum now, feeding off the attention like a plant finally getting sun. "Maybe you'll walk. Maybe you won't. Maybe. 2 years riding that word while Mom bankrupts herself trying to save you." "He does look pretty comfortable in that chair," my grandmother added, loud enough for the whole yard. "Like he's had practice." "I'm in it 12 hours a day by choice," I snapped, and immediately regretted how it sounded. Tyler grabbed my wallet out of my jacket where it had fallen and held it aloft like Exhibit A. "Disability card." $837 a month. Plus mom covers everything else. Rent, food, medical supplies, special equipment. He flung it at my chest. It landed open, my old driver's license photo staring up at me. A photo from back when I could stand for a DMV camera without help. The free ride's over, Marcus. Today. Right here. The crowd actually started to applaud. Like Tyler had just delivered some big cinematic monologue about grit and refusing to make excuses. Tyler, that's enough, my mom finally said. But there was no weight behind it. It came out more like a request than a command. No, Mom. His voice went almost gentle when he turned to her. He's bleeding you dry. 3 physical therapy sessions a week. Special equipment. That venue had to get. You took out a second mortgage on a house you've owned 30 years. You'll be paying that off until you're 80. Her face went red. She didn't deny it. I hadn't even known about the mortgage until that exact second. I never asked her to do that, I said. You never stopped her either. Tyler crouched down, right in my face. Get up right now, he said quietly, or I'm calling the cops. Fraud, whatever fits. You'll do time. Honestly, might be the best thing for everybody. I can't. The pain in my leg was climbing, and it had that particular quality that told me something had torn, something that was going to cost thousands more dollars and weeks more therapy to fix. Get up. And then the whole family joined in. A chant. Get up, get up, get up. 50 voices, maybe more, neighbors wandering over to watch, kids filming on their phones, my Aunt Linda clapping the beat like a cheerleader. I stayed exactly where I was, because I had no other option, because my right leg hadn't had full feeling in over 2 years, because there were rods in my spine that made certain movements physically impossible, because everything Tyler was screaming, every accusation, every insult, was built entirely out of things he'd never bothered to ask about, never bothered to check. My heartbeat was pounding in my leg now. Tyler grabbed a fistful of my shirt and hauled me half up off the ground. I am done watching you manipulate this family. You're a liar and a con art. That's my patient. And you're assaulting him. The chanting stopped cold. Everything stopped. A man had stepped out from the edge of the crowd, mid-50s, khakis, a navy polo, wire-rimmed glasses, a can of Diet Coke in one hand like he'd been standing there the entire time, quietly watching the show. Because he had been. Tyler let go of my shirt. I dropped back onto the concrete. Who the hell are you? Tyler demanded. Dr. James Chun. A sip of Diet Coke. Marcus's orthopedic surgeon. Among other things. Dead silence swallowed the yard. You could actually hear the burgers sizzling, a neighbor's dog barking, that country song still looping from somebody's Bluetooth speaker. I'm also his physical therapist, his pain management specialist, and I consult regularly with his neurologist over at the university hospital. I've been treating him since roughly 2 days after his accident. 26 months ago. My Aunt Linda let out a nervous little laugh. Well, doctor, you must be very proud. Apparently your patient can walk just fine when he thinks nobody's watching. Dr. Chin smiled. It didn't come close to his eyes. Actually, he said, pulling out his phone, there's something I think everybody here should see. He held it up. An X-ray filled the screen. This is Marcus's lower spine. 4th and 5th lumbar vertebrae. See these rods? 4 of them. 14 screws. That's from the spinal fusion surgery I performed on him 14 months ago. 7 hours on the table. 6 months of recovery. He let that sit. The reason Marcus can stand during a supervised therapy session is because we are painstakingly training his body to tolerate short, controlled distances with a walker. Right now, that's roughly 50 meters before the nerve damage produces pain intense enough to require immediate rest. About 5 minutes of mobility. After that, the damaged nerves start misfiring, what we call neuropathic pain. Imagine somebody hammering nails into your leg while simultaneously running a low current through it. He swiped to another slide. Here's the sciatic nerve on his right side. This darker region is permanent damage from the fall down those stairs. It's why his right leg has almost no proprioception, the sense of where your own limb is in space, and why he can't bear real weight for any length of time. The nerve simply misfires. No warning. The leg just gives. My cousin Jake had already started backing quietly toward the house. The brace he wears, $4,000, most of it out of pocket, provides some stability. It is not a cure. There isn't one. This is simply his life now. Dr. Chin's tone never wavered, never raised, never dropped. Pure clinical steadiness. Every day is painful, every step uncertain. He turned and looked straight at Tyler. But sure, he's faking. He held the phone higher. This is video I've recorded over the last 7 minutes, starting from the moment I arrived at this lovely, family gathering. He hit play. Tyler's own voice rang out of the tiny speaker. Stop faking for attention. The sound of my body hitting concrete. The laughter. The chanting. He let it run 30 full seconds before cutting it off. I recorded all of it, he said. The assault. The verbal abuse. 50 people cheering along while a disabled man was humiliated on the ground. His eyes moved to my uncle. And you're not the only one who's been gathering evidence today. Richard's phone was still up, still recording, his hand now visibly shaking. Tyler stumbled back into the picnic table. We thought. You thought wrong, Dr. Chen said, ice creeping into his voice for the first time. You didn't think at all. You didn't request a single medical record. You didn't call his neurologist. You didn't ask one question. You decided he was lying because that was easier than accepting that sometimes life is simply cruel, and there's no one convenient to blame for it. He knelt beside me with the practiced calm of a man who'd done this 1,000 times. Can you move, Marcus? I managed a small nod. Pain 1 to 10. 8. Maybe 9. He examined the knee gently, professionally, and his expression tightened. Possible ligament tear. We'll need imaging. He glanced up at the frozen crowd. Someone bring his chair. Now. My mother was the first to move. She righted the chair, wheeled it over, silent tears sliding down her face without a single sound escaping her. Dr. Chen lifted me back into it with the same careful precision, then stood and addressed everyone. I came here today because Marcus asked me to. He knew this confrontation was building. He'd seen the comments online, heard the jokes at every holiday about how convenient his condition was. His gaze swept the whole yard. He asked his surgeon, the man who opened his spine and installed the hardware keeping him from being paralyzed, to be here, to watch, and to document. Because he already knew none of you believed him. And he was right. Tyler's mouth opened. Nothing came out. Dr. Chen pulled a card from his wallet and handed it over. That's my attorney. She specializes in disability litigation. I'll be filing a police report tomorrow morning. Assault of a disabled individual, along with a civil suit for battery and emotional distress. A pause. My testimony as his treating physician will carry considerable weight. I have every appointment documented, every scan, every note, 2 years of medical evidence proving, beyond any doubt, exactly what he's been living through. He turned to Richard. That includes your video. Thank you for that. By the way, it captures the group intimidation nicely. Then, to the whole crowd, every person who chanted, every person who laughed, every person who stood here filming while a disabled man was assaulted by his own family. You're all on camera too. He let that hang. I wonder how this plays on the local news. A disabled veteran, assaulted at his own family reunion because everyone decided he was faking. He's not a, Tyler started. National Guard, for years, honorable discharge. It's in his federal records, which, incidentally, makes this a matter of potential federal interest too. Dr. Chen's smile turned razor thin. Assaulting a disabled veteran carries enhanced penalties, in case anyone was wondering. I didn't know that either, until my attorney mentioned it last week. Silence. Somewhere the burgers had started to burn, and nobody so much as glanced at the grill. He handed me my wallet, then took hold of the wheelchair grips. We're leaving. Marcus has an ER visit ahead of him, which I'll be documenting as an assault-related injury. Damaged brace, for 1,000. Bent wheelchair frame, another 3. We'll add it all up. He started pushing me toward the driveway. Behind us, 50 people who had spent the last 10 minutes chanting for me to stand, calling me a liar, applauding my own brother for shoving me to the ground, now realizing every second of it had just been recorded. Wait, Tyler's voice cracked. Marcus, wait. I'm sorry. I didn't know. I didn't turn around. We reached the van, the modified one my mother had quietly mortgaged her house to buy. Dr. Chen folded the chair into the back, then slid behind the wheel. Tyler ran up and knocked on my window. I rolled it down 2 inches. You want to know the actual worst part? I said, I called you 3 times after the surgery. Left voicemails. Invited you to sit in on my appointments so you could hear the prognosis yourself. You never once picked up. You decided I was lying without ever asking for a shred of proof. You chose to believe I was a con artist instead of believing I was hurt. I just thought. You didn't think. That's exactly the problem. I rolled the window back up. We pulled out of the driveway. The ER wasn't quiet that Sunday. Dr. Chen walked me straight through triage, spoke with the attending, and had me in an exam room within 20 minutes. The scans confirmed a torn ligament in my knee, surgery scheduled for Wednesday. Another 6 weeks tacked onto a recovery that already felt endless. While we waited on the specialist, I finally asked him, Why did you actually come today? He thought about it for a moment. 27 years treating spinal patients. I've watched families tear themselves apart over injuries like yours. Watched caregivers burn out. Watched patients get abandoned because believing they're faking is so much easier than accepting the world is random and unfair. He adjusted his glasses. I came to document the truth. What they do with it now is up to them. But they can't claim ignorance anymore. The report went to police Monday morning. A detective called Tuesday afternoon. We've reviewed the footage, the medical documentation, Dr. Chen's statement. This is about as clear-cut as it gets. Your brother caused you additional injury through an assault on a disabled person. That's a felony charge. What happens now? We issue a warrant. He'll likely be arraigned within 48 hours. Given the evidence, the state will probably move forward even if you don't want to press it personally. I don't know what I want, I admitted. You don't have to decide today, he said. But families like this, they don't change without real consequences. Legal ones. Tyler was arrested Wednesday morning, out on bail by that afternoon. His attorney called me Thursday, all soft apologetic tones, asking if I'd consider dropping things. I'm not the one pressing charges, I said. The state is. Right. But if you told them it was a misunderstanding. It wasn't a misunderstanding. It was assault, on video, in front of 50 witnesses. He tried a few more angles. I hung up. The civil suit went in that Friday. My new attorney, decades of experience in disability law, laid it out plainly across her desk. We're suing Tyler for battery and emotional distress. But there's a bigger picture here. Your uncle, your aunt, everyone who joined that chant, that's a hostile environment. Group harassment of a disabled individual. That's actionable too. You want me to sue my whole family? I want to send a message. I've handled cases like this before. Disabled people abused by relatives who've convinced themselves it's fake. It happens more than you'd think, and it almost never ends in justice. Because the victim's usually isolated and financially dependent, too scared to say anything. She looked at me steadily. You're not in that position. You have documentation, a surgeon willing to testify, video evidence, and a chance to actually change the narrative. I just wanted them to believe me. They believe you now, she said. Let's make sure they never get to forget it. The story hit local news that weekend. By Monday, it was circulating online, footage with everyone's face blurred except Tyler's and mine. But that was more than enough. 3 million views by Tuesday. National coverage by Wednesday. Morning show requests by Thursday. I turned every one of them down. I didn't want to be famous. I wanted to be believed, and that had already happened. Tyler's trial got scheduled 6 months out, but his life didn't wait that long to fall apart. His employer let him go within the week, liability concerns. His girlfriend left. Friends stopped calling. Every job interview, every new person he tried to meet, eventually found the video. My mom called me 3 weeks in. He's sleeping in his car, she said. Lost the apartment. Can't find work anywhere. He's your brother, Marcus. Can't you do something? Like what? Ask the prosecutor to drop it? Tell them it was all a misunderstanding. He made a mistake. Mom, he assaulted me in front of 50 people while I was already disabled. That's not a mistake. That's a decision. So you're just going to let his whole life collapse? Your own brother. I sat with that question a long time before answering. I'm going to let him face consequences for what he did. There's a difference. She hung up without another word. The settlement came through 4 months later. Tyler pled guilty, probation, community service, mandatory anger management, a suspended sentence hanging over his head. The civil case settled for a 6-figure sum covering medical bills, future therapy, and damages. He'd be paying it off for years. You won. My attorney told me the day it finalized. Doesn't feel like it. It never does. But you told your whole family, everyone watching, that disabled people matter. That there are consequences for treating someone's suffering like it's an inconvenience. He's broke. Homeless. His life is wrecked. He wrecked it himself, she said. You just made sure it was documented. 6 months after that, I ran into him by accident at the same rehab clinic where my cousin swore he'd once seen me, walking around like nothing was wrong. Tyler was in the waiting room, thinner, older somehow, in a different shirt. He saw me, half rose, sat back down. I rolled over. What are you doing here? Court-ordered service. I help out in the rehab wing now. Mobility exercises with patients. I honestly didn't know what to say. That's good, I guess. I meet a lot of people like you, he said quietly. Spinal injuries, nerve damage, chronic pain, people who look fine but are fighting just to get through the day. He finally looked up at me. I'm sorry, Marcus. I didn't understand any of it. I didn't even try. It was easier to think you were lying than to accept you were really hurt. I know. Do you think you'll ever forgive me? I sat with that for a long moment. 26 months of pain. 50 people chanting. The x-rays. The settlement paying for a van and medical bills I'd otherwise never have afforded. Him, sleeping in his car because of what he'd done. I don't know, I said finally. Ask me again in a year. That's fair. A year later, he asked again, at a different clinic where I'd transferred for a new nerve treatment. He'd moved nearby too, had an apartment now, a steady job as an aide, was rebuilding piece by piece. This time I actually knew my answer. I forgive you for not understanding, for not asking, for believing I was lying without proof. I looked at him. I don't forgive you for shoving me out of that chair, for humiliating me in front of our whole family, for choosing cruelty when compassion was right there. I'm not sure I ever will. That's fair too. But I see you trying, working with other patients, learning, becoming someone who actually understands what I've lived with. That counts for something. Does it change anything? It changes everything. You're not the person who pushed me anymore. I'm not the person who got pushed. We're both different now. Better. Different, I said. Maybe that's enough. 2 years after the reunion, a disability advocacy group asked me to speak at a conference. Dr. Chun had recommended me. I almost said no. Then I thought about every person sitting in a wheelchair somewhere right now, facing the exact same disbelief from the people who were supposed to love them unconditionally. So I said yes. I told the whole room everything. The fall, the surgery, the family reunion, Tyler, Dr. Chin stepping out of the crowd, all of it. When I finished, the silence lasted a beat too long, and then the applause hit like thunder. A woman in a wheelchair approached me afterward. Multiple sclerosis. My family thinks I'm faking too, she said. They say it isn't real, that I just need to try harder. Do you have documentation? 3 neurologists. Scans. Everything. Then show them. Make them look. Make them understand that their refusal to believe you isn't your burden to carry. Tears started falling. What if they still don't believe me? Then you document it, I told her. And you protect yourself, because your pain is real and it matters, whether or not they choose to accept it. 3 years after that reunion, my mom called again. The family wants to get together for Thanksgiving. Small, immediate family. Tyler included. We're hoping you'll come. Will anyone actually apologize? Silence. That's what I thought. They feel terrible about it, Marcus. Feeling terrible isn't an apology. It is an acknowledgement. It isn't change. In the end, 3 people out of 50 actually did it properly. My Aunt Karen sent a 5-page handwritten letter, naming exactly what she'd failed to do and why. My teenage cousin Sarah, who hadn't taken part in any of it, sent a card along with a donation to the disability advocacy group I now volunteered with. And Tyler showed up at my door on an ordinary Tuesday afternoon, holding a folder. I've been working with Dr. Chun, he said, without any lead-in. Volunteering at the hospital for 2 years now, learning people's stories. He held out the folder. Letters from 12 people I've worked with. They all agreed to let me show you. I wanted you to see I've actually changed. That I understand now. That I've spent 2 years trying to become someone worth forgiving. I took it without opening it yet. I'm sorry I pushed you out of that chair, he said, voice breaking. Sorry I called you a liar. Sorry I started that chant. Sorry I chose cruelty over compassion. Sorry I never asked a single question. Sorry I let my resentment about how your accident changed this family turn into something so ugly. You didn't deserve any of it. You were suffering, and I made it worse. Come in, I said. We talked for 3 hours, about that day, about the months he spent living out of his car, about learning to actually see the people he now helped, about finally, truly understanding what I'd lost. At the door, he paused. I don't expect forgiveness. I know what I did. I just want you to know I'm different now. Better, because of you. You're different because of you, I corrected. Because you chose to change. But don't make me your redemption story, Tyler. Don't make my disability the lesson that taught you empathy. That's not fair to me. He nodded slowly. You're right. I'm sorry again. After he left, I opened the folder and read every letter. 12 strangers describing his patience, his gentleness, his understanding. 12 small pieces of proof that people really can change, that cruelty doesn't always have to be permanent, and that sometimes, not always, the person who broke you can genuinely become someone better. I still don't know if I'll ever fully forgive him. But maybe, for now, that's enough.